All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Springdale for July 17th, 2024. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we begin this meeting and service together, we remember our nation's Independence Day earlier this month and the many sacrifices made at our country's start. As we continue in service to our own local community, we remember that our words, our decisions, and our actions directly impact so many others. In this spirit, let us incline our ears towards reason, apply our hearts to understanding, and seek knowledge we can use to find common ground among the residents for the betterment of our community. And now I would ask that we all take a moment of quiet contemplation in memory of longtime resident Greg McFarland, husband of Councilmember Michelle McFarland, and father and friend to so many others, who's passed away this week. Thank you. All right, Ms. Proud, if you could take roll.
Mr. Gleeds.
Present. Excuse me, present.
Mr. Jacobs.
Present.
Ms. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Present.
Mr. Vanover.
Present.
Mrs. Webster. Mr. Anderson.
Present. Council, before you in your package, you have the minutes for the meeting for June 19, 2024. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second. Moved in second. I have Mr. Vanover as the second. All those in, I'm sorry, questions, discussion, or adjustments? All right, seeing none, Ms. Brown, or I'm sorry, all those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the minutes are approved with 6 affirmative votes. All right, we'll move on to committee and official reports. We'll start with Civil Service Commission. Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council. The Springdale Civil Service Commission did meet on July the 11th at the Springdale Municipal Building, and those present was Mrs. Darby, Mrs. McNear, also Mr. Ewell, Ms. Morgan, along with Fire Chief Stanley. Oh, and we did have a guest, Ms. Brianne Branscombe, who came to observe and was shadowing Ms. Morgan. We started our meeting by looking at the reports, and of note was the fire marshal hiring process. It says, Ms. Morgan shared that the current fire inspector, Mr. Lindsay, has submitted his retirement, and as a result, Ms. Tara Timmerman will transition from part-time inspector to full-time fire marshal to assume the duties of that position. So that should be a seamless transition for us. Also, Ms. Morgan reported that Mr. Matthew Richwine had adjusted his starting date within the patrol officer position. The police department will have reached their full complement of patrol officers with the candidates having completed their background investigation. So again, that's a good thing that we fully staff within the police department. Also, Chief Stanley was present to address the commissioners for the fire lieutenant promotional process. This process would promote 3 current firefighter 2 paramedics to the position of lieutenant. Chief Stanley outlined the promotions would not change the existing manpower, would rather provide an additional level of supervision on each of the unit days. It would increase the safety and would allow for more professional development of the staff. So we were certainly in agreement and certainly acknowledged that particular request, even to the point where a cost analysis revealed that there's no financial impact to the fire department. So Mrs. Darby made a motion to approve the fire lieutenant promotional process timeline, and it was seconded by Mrs. McNair, and the motion passed 3-0. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 1st at 2 p.m. here at the municipal building. Any questions?
Don't see any. Thank you, Mr. Coleman.
All right, thank you.
All right, next, rules and law, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Finance Committee, Mr. Vanover.
No report.
Planning Commission, Ms. Sullivan Weisskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Planning Commission met on Tuesday, July 9th, and Mr. Galster was not in attendance. We started with Springdale Lake PUD Bodega on 12021 Sheraton Lane. It was a major modification, and that got approved 5-0. They did do some modifications from the first time that they came, so there will be a drive-through, and they will have it's going to be an Italian bodega, so different Italian typed sandwiches and food, and they will also have an inside grocery store type of thing, like a bodega. Our second thing we had was zoning amendment chickens, and that was withdrawn from the Urban Farming Committee, and we had voted 5-0 to go ahead and withdraw that. And then we had the Tri-County Mall PUD change of use major modification, and that was withdrawn by applicant. And that was everything that I have, unless anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Don't see any. Thank you. All right, next we have Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Board of Health, I believe Board of Health was on summer schedule, and there's no report for that?
That's accurate.
All right. All right, next, capital improvements, Ms. Sullivan Weisskopf.
Thank you, no report.
Next, we have OKI. That's with me. OKI is on its summer schedule, and the executive board did not meet this past month. Next, the mayor's report. Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, want to indicate that there was a great celebration for the 4th of July weekend over at the pool, and all the lifeguards. We have one of our, I don't want to undercut it, lead lifeguard, assistant manager, present with us, but they had a number of games going on. They had one where they were doing a coin toss where they literally threw quarters into the pool, which I would have loved as a kid. You saw kids with dollars of quarters they dove in and got. We also gave away T-shirts, and we'll have some other opportunities where we give these out and at some of our community functions. So we gave away T-shirts, something we want to do. We have a neighbor to our municipality to our east that often is giving out T-shirts, and not to be outdone by Mayor Hardman. So this is the first year we're doing this. We hope to do this every year, but we'll have some other opportunities to get T-shirts out to residents and employees, what have you. The second thing I want to cover is we have a number of individuals who are retiring from long 10 years of serving the city of Springdale. Carl Lamping is going to be retiring, Tom Lindsay leaving the organization, and also Mr. Jones is in his last meeting, and we're not going to celebrate and canonize him yet. He's going to come back in August, and we'll do that then. But I do want to note that this is his last meeting where he'll be on the dais with us, and we appreciate his long time of service. We do want to note that I'm asking council, it's our intention to have Brian Ewell become the city administrator and Stephanie Moore become the assistant city administrator. And there's legislation on the agenda tonight with regard to Mr. Ewell. So we hope to have your support for that. And we appreciate all the service that Mr. Jones and Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Lamping have given us over the years. While we're celebrating, and we're going to celebrate some future individuals, I want to celebrate one person now who's made unprecedented contributions to the city of Springdale over the years. And I have a presentation for Mayor Doyle Webster. 52 years of service, 7 terms as mayor, and I think that's not going to be repeated in our lifetimes, I would imagine. And I think it's important. There's a saying of giving flowers to people while they're with us, and Mayor Webster isn't going anywhere, but I want to make sure that we take this opportunity to recognize him. I'm not going to make you come down to the dais if you don't want to. I'll come to you. So Mayor Webster, I want to present this to you. And I think with all the time and all the things that you've done, you probably don't have one of those just yet.
No, I do not. The key to the city. How about that? 52 years.
So I figured that Mayor Webster didn't have one unless he gave one to himself, which he could have done. But I figured it more appropriate that someone else do it. So again, we appreciate you, and I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm almost lost for words. That's never happened to me before. But anyway, thank you very much, Mayor Hawkins. I really appreciate that. And all I can say is it was 52 years of labor of love. And say that in all sincerity. I enjoyed every minute I served up here. We had good times, bad times, but at the end of the day, everybody I worked with up here had one thing in common. We wanted to do what's best for the city of Springdale. And I really think that the group you've got assembled here certainly carries on that tradition. So just good luck to all of you. Anything I could do, please give me a call. All right, and thank you again.
And I just want to state, that I don't plan on doing a whole bunch of those through the course of the next 3.5 years. But it's something for individuals that have made major contributions and left an indelible mark on our city that's going to last long after they're here. So just want to note that. Last thing I want to address is with regard to our agendas tonight, as well as Chapter 30.03 of our codified ordinances. So there are a number of, everybody has their agenda tonight that has 5 things listed. We have a number of other things as you review your internal memorandum that the administration and I are asking to have council consider adding to the agenda tonight. And this is as a result of, it came to our attention from council member that we're not consistent with our practices with regard to the codified ordinances, and so we want to be consistent. Now, I do think that the ordinance that we have is archaic in terms of our practices. We've been doing what we've been doing for over a decade and a half, talking with some of our folks that have been on council before me, Mr. Vanover, Mr. Galster. It's probably been going on closer to 2 decades. And there are times where we had those things go on. We had an ordinance with regard to the sale of firearms. We weren't following with regard to when Walmart and Dick's were selling firearms. That was brought to folks' attention, and we changed it as Vance was coming in. So I'm asking for council to look at that and make an amendment. Currently, our 30.03A would indicate that the mayor and administration could only bring forth administrative ordinances of appointment and the like only, which would require the approval of council. And so there's a lot of things that come through that we're made aware of through the day-to-day operation, grants and purchases and what have you, and we want to make sure we can go through and do those things as efficiently as possible as we have been. I do think the practice that we've been doing for close to 2 decades was consistent by the predecessors that have been on council, myself included. That said, we're asking if council will consider adding on, it's item 4 in your packets, an ordinance accepting a bid and authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Atleta Construction for Tri-County Parkway Sidewalk Project. The city's been awarded a $304,800 funding through Hamilton County Community Revitalization Grant, and we would like to be able to act on that this evening. Item number 7, we're asking for an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of driveway aprons on the public right-of-way related to the West Crescentville Road curb and concrete replacement project, and declaring that an emergency. Again, this is something that we need to act on quickly. We're also asking to add on what's marked as item number 8, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration for participation in the fiscal year 2023 Safe Streets and Roads All Grants Program, and declaring an emergency. That's a situation where the city grant agreement has now been received, and the city needs that to accept those funds. We're asking for you to add item number 9, which is, the administration again is recommending this. This is something where there's contributions for our health accounts for our full-time employees, and we're looking to have that added on to the agenda this evening, as well as the item number 10, which is an ordinance authorizing the execution of a project loan agreement with the state of Ohio through Ohio Public Works Commission. This is involving OPWC awarded us financial assistance through the State Capital Improvements Program in the form of a 21-year zero-interest loan in the amount of $1,170,000 and some odd dollars. And then the last two are items which I guess technically they've already been okayed by President Anderson, but I want to make sure a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute natural gas aggregation agreement with the supplier recommended by the Energy Alliance Incorporated, declaring an emergency, and an ordinance authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to approve the assignment of a community reinvestment agreement and declaring an emergency. So we're asking for council to add those things to the agenda. I'm personally asking council to revisit in new business the matter with regard to 30.03A. With that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And council, just for administrative purposes, you're aware how we'll handle these tonight. When we get to ordinances and resolutions, I will open the floor to make a motion to make the adjustments there. So we'll add that or have that discussion during ordinances, and I'll provide the numbers and the readings so we can all be on the same page. In regards to the new business request, we can deal with that when we get to new business, and we can take up and do that formally so we stay on with the agenda. All right? Okay. I know it's a lot of change for tonight. It's unusual, but there are a lot of late-breaking items that we want to make sure got taken care of for the city, and we didn't want to delay it by another few weeks. All right. Any questions or anything else for the mayor's report? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mayor Hawkins. Next, we'll move on to the administrator's report. Mr. Jones, for the last time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'll start my report this evening by calling up our Health Commissioner, Matt Clayton. He has a few introductions, and I think that perhaps that'd be good timing for him in case he and his colleagues decide they want to leave the meeting, since it is quite a long agenda. So we'll start with Mr. Clayton.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you all for allowing me to come in and talk about Health Department and our interns tonight. We're currently engaged in a number of grants, federal, state, and local. And I have in council chambers tonight 10 of our student interns I'm going to introduce. So I'd like Ted Ryan Nakachu Mabana to stand, please. Am I close enough on that, sir? Ted is a native of Cameroon, and he's currently a student at Xavier University in the Health Services Administration program. He's entering his senior year, and Ted has been with us this summer working in the Mosquito Control Grant Program. Gavin Allen, would you please stand? Gavin is also a student in the HSA program at Xavier University, entering his senior year. And Gavin is a native of the Bronx, New York. He actually speaks Chinese fluently, and Ted speaks French fluently. So they've been able to provide us with some translation services. These two gentlemen are responsible for Springdale Health having the first West Nile virus positive mosquito pool in our area last week. I'm not sure that's something to be congratulated for, but
Well, catching it early is important.
yes, they've been doing great work. Thank you, gentlemen. And Marley Brenner, would you please stand? Marley Brenner is a junior at University of Cincinnati, and she's also a student orientation lead and a student ambassador. Additionally, Marley is a lifelong resident of the city of Springdale, and she is the granddaughter of Springdale Fire Captain Ken Brenner. Thank you, Marley. She is currently serving as our REACH coordinator, and that's the racial and ethnic approaches to improving community health. Thank you. Jayla Dixon, please stand. Jayla is a junior at the University of Cincinnati in the biology program, and Jayla is currently at the Springdale Health Department as an environmental health intern. Thank you, Jayla. Alexis Meyer. Alexis Meyer is a Health Services Administration senior at Ohio University, and she is serving as an environmental health intern, and she's also been doing some work on the health promotion and health education side. Thank you, ma'am. Sydney Amos, if you would please stand. Sydney recently finished the Health Services Administration program at Xavier University, and she came to us in January of 2024 to work in health promotion and health education as an intern. She's currently working in our community health improvement program and will be pursuing a master's in public health. Thank you, Cindy. Lindsay Dwyer. Lindsay Dwyer is entering her sophomore year at Elon University in North Carolina. She is a psychology and Spanish major. Lindsay has been working in the health promotion and health education program this summer, and she's been providing Spanish translation for us. Thank you so much. We have Brianna Shamim. Brianna is a new intern in health promotion and health education. She is a senior. She's entering her junior or senior year? I'm sorry. She's entering her junior year at UC and studying biology. Thank you, Brianna. Ivy Nguyen. Ivy is entering her last semester at Xavier University in the Health Services Administration program. She's been with us since December of 2023? October, okay, I knew it was somewhere in 2023. And she's working in health promotion, health education. She's assuming the role of coordinator for our HPE program. Thank you, Ivy. And we have Tamsin Day. Tamsin finished the MPH program at the University of Cincinnati in May. She is currently our coordinator for health promotion and health education, and began her internship at Springdale Health in July of 2023. Thank you. Thank you all so much for allowing us to come in and to talk about our student intern programs and to introduce these interns. They've been doing an amazing job.
So, Mr. President and Council, I'd like to point out that Mr. Clayton did those introductions with no notes. Very nice. So, thank you, Matt, and your interns. We have a lot of folks here. We really appreciate your services to our community. Thank you. Back to what you were talking about, Mr. President. It is my last official meeting up here. I feel a little inadequate to say that I've got over 40 years of service in comparison to the old timer out there with 50 plus years. But I've worked in 3 cities, so I'm in my 24th year. I made a comment to Nicole Browder today that for 24 years I've sat up on the dais, and the next meeting it'll probably seem a little different to me to sit in the audience, but that'll be a fun thing to do. So with that, I'd like to add a couple things that Mr. Wilson from Parks and Rec asked me to share. We're closing out on fall sports with regard to signups and registration for youth soccer and volleyball. If you're interested, please get signed up as quickly as possible. We have a Parks Revitalization Grant, a grand opening, and it's a ribbon cutting. That will be Thursday, July 25th, and this is with our benefactor, Marjorie Underwood Randolph. That will be at Cameron Park at 12:30. And then immediately following that, we'll go over to Underwood Park at approximately 1 p.m. or whatever time we arrive there. So again, this is our benefactor that gave a substantial contributions so that we could upgrade those locations. So we're very excited about that. We're also going to do, with regard to those completions of those projects, a free snowy shaved ice cream, provide some treats at the Cameron Park on Saturday, July 27th from 11 to 1. If you have kids or grandkids, come on out. For you adults, we'll accept that. Also, the benefactor has been invited, and we believe will be here on August 21st to get recognized by, in particular, by Charlie Wilson, the mayor and the council for their wonderful contribution, her wonderful contribution. And then finally, a concert in the park on Thursday, 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. will be just Vince and the fellas. They tell me that's 80s, 90s, pop, funk, and disco. Come and support SYB. We'll be selling drinks to include adult beverages, and also there'll be barbecued food truck for the concert. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we'll move on to Law Director's report. Mr. Braun.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
All right, Engineers report. Mr. Riggs.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone's probably seen a lot of my report. Northland is under construction now. Crescentville Road, West Crescentville Road, that's been repaved, and it looks, I just drove through it prior to coming here, it looks like they're setting up to do the permanent pavement markings. So those two projects are moving along. Then we got another one, the Tri-County Parkway sidewalks. We did have a bid opening on July 11th. We got good results. We got good competition. There were 7 bids submitted, and Alita Construction was found to provide the lowest conforming bid. So we got another one about to start. That's really all I had this afternoon.
All right, don't see any questions. Thank you. All right, next, Rental Program Committee, Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick note. I was talking to Mr. Yule before the meeting. The experts are finalizing the reports, so we will be getting together here shortly, but I'll wait till we get that and then call the date. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next, the Urban Farming Special Committee, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Urban Farming Special Committee met on the 26th of last month. In general, just in terms of the direction the committee is going, we've created a survey that's going to be released to the public in August. But in general, the direction is to put something in front of council that eases restrictions but is still conservative, at least in my opinion. We looked at things like, for example, if we were to, the current restriction on lot sizes is 3 acres. We could lower that to 2, to 1.5. So one of the things we did at the last meeting is we're waiting on some data from the city to get some real numbers on how many lots are of certain size categories, and that'll help inform us on what kind of size we might settle on as a lowered limit, but still a limit. We also talked about annual permits and limiting the number of those permits issued as a possible direction. But again, the next thing that's coming is a survey that the residents will have a chance to fill out. There'll be a QR code, I believe, in the upcoming newsletter in August, if that's correct. And I will say, we know the survey is like a blunt instrument. It's not, the committee isn't looking to take a survey of the community and just do something based on that survey. But it can help inform us, and we're going to ask that citizens take their time and try to contribute their thoughts. It's a multi-part survey, but it took less than a minute for me to fill out. So it's a branching type survey. So just gathering some opinions there, and but we haven't set our next meeting date. But we'll do that soon. And that concludes my report unless there are any questions.
All right, don't see any. Thank you. All right, that's the end of committee and official reports. Next, we'll move on to communications. Ms. Browder, any communications for council tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President. No communications.
All right, next we'll move on to communications from the audience. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address council for any reason, this is one of your two opportunities. You'd simply come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you'd have up to 5 minutes to address council on any matter that you'd like. So at this point, the floor is open for communications from the audience. Second call? Third and final call? All right, I'm closing communications from the audience. Next, we're moving on to ordinances and resolutions. As I mentioned earlier after the mayor's report, we have a request for, I believe, 6 additional ordinances, 4 of which were supplied in council's packets. 2 of them I have here that I will pass out. So at this point, the chair is open to receiving motions to amend the agenda.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we amend the agenda, add the appropriate items as per administration's request.
Seconded.
All right, moved and seconded. Before I open for discussion, I will let you know the ordinances and names as we number them when submitted, assuming that the motion passes. All right, at this point, we have a motion to amend the agenda to add the 6 requested additional ordinances to our agenda. Is there any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you'd poll council on the motion to amend the agenda to add the 6 requested additional ordinances.
Mr. Vanover?
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. The motion to amend the agenda to add the 6 requested ordinances to our agenda passes with 6 affirmative votes. I'll go ahead and pass those out now and let you know the update to the agenda. So in your packet, there were 4 of them that were unnumbered. The first one was an ordinance to accept the bid authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with ALLDATA for the construction company. That will be referenced as ordinance number 33, 2024. The next one that was in your packet should have been an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of driveway aprons. That will be labeled ordinance 34, 2024. The next one in your packet should have been an ordinance authorizing contributions in certain health accounts of full-time employees. That'll be labeled ordinance 35, 2024. The next ordinance that was in your packet was an ordinance to authorize the execution of a project loan agreement with the state of Ohio. That'll be referenced as ordinance 36, 2024. Additionally, there were 2 items that were too urgent and not distributed in the packet. I'll pass those out now. They're requested. The first one is the gas aggregation legislation. That will be labeled ordinance 37, 2024. There's copies I'll pass out. There's a note at the top and then the ordinance. There's 2 copies there if you could pass them that way. If you could take one of those and pass it down. I'm sorry, did I miss one? The loan agreement was 36. 35 is health savings accounts. 34 is levies. 33 is the bid for sidewalks. I'm missing the Federal Highway Administration one.
Mr. President, if I may.
Please.
I believe that I want to make sure there's another ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation and Federal Highway. Did that one get marked as well? Okay. So I think the motion said for 6, and I think there's 7. I think there's 5 in the packet and the additional 2.
All right, we'll come back to that one. Hang on, let me pass out the ones I have to make sure that we stay current, and then we can come back and address that 7th one. I'm passing out now the additional ordinance. This is the CRA agreement. There's 2 copies going that way. That one is number 38, 2024, and that's the CRA ordinance. Hang on, I'll run through them one more time. Take a copy and pass it down. So is there a copy of what's the one that's missing? The U.S. Department. All right, so this one hasn't been called yet. I'll borrow this. This will be 39 when it comes up. All right, so to recap the changes, and then we'll come back and deal with the one that we missed, the number 7. So far on the agenda, we've added item number 33, 2024, and that was the bid authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Adleta Construction for Tri-County Parkway Sideway Project. That's ordinance 33, 2024. Ordinance 34 is an ordinance levying special assessments for improvements of driveway aprons in the public right-of-way related to the Questenville Road curb and concrete replacement project and declaring an emergency. That's ordinance 34, 2024. The next one on the agenda after that would be ordinance 35, 2024, and that's an ordinance authorizing certain health accounts and full-time employees of the city of Springdale related to the city's health insurance plans and declaring an emergency. Then I have ordinance 36, 2024 that's being added to the agenda. That's an ordinance authorizing the execution of a project loan agreement with the state of Ohio through the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement Program for the Northland Boulevard Reconstruction Project and declaring an emergency. I then have ordinance 37, 2024, which I just passed out at the dais, which is an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a natural gas aggregation agreement with a supplier recommended by Energy Alliance and declaring an emergency. Then I have ordinance 38, 2024 that's been added to the agenda, and that's an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to approve the assignment of community reinvestment agreement and declare an emergency. So that's action that we've taken and we've added to the agenda. We'll deal with the one that's missing in a second. For your agendas that you're following, since there's a presentation attached to the Energy Alliance option, which is ordinance 37, 2024, we will insert that at the start of our ordinances so that we don't have to keep our friend here any longer than necessary. So ordinance 37 will be the next item that the council takes up. All the remaining additional ordinances will be added at the end of the ordinance section after the resolutions. Okay? All right, now there's the matter that I guess in my packet I was missing. There's an additional ordinance number, a 7th ordinance that was requested in the mayor's report. And this was an ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration for participation in fiscal year 2023 Safe Streets and Roads for all grant programs and declaring an emergency. That is not currently on an agenda, and the chair will accept a motion to add it.
Move to adopt, or move to add.
Second. All right, there's a motion to add ordinance number 39 to the agenda, and this would be at the end of the ones we've added. Any questions or discussion on that? All right, seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you'd poll council to modify the agenda to add ordinance 39, 2024.
Mrs. Salvo-Meiskop.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. All right, the motion to amend the agenda to add the 7th ordinance passes with 6 affirmative votes. It's a lot of administration. I apologize for that, but that's just where we are tonight. So are there any questions about the agenda that we've got going forward before we get into it? Everybody okay? All right. So with that, as I mentioned, the next ordinance that we will take up is ordinance number 37, 2024, which is an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a national gas aggregation agreement with the supplier recommended by Energy Alliance. Mr. Jacobs, if you could read the ordinance first, and then we'll open it up for presentation.
This is all I've received so far.
It went one way, not the other.
Okay.
You take that one.
Thank you.
And this should say, okay, take this, it should say an ordinance. There was a typo on it.
Other end?
They've got theirs. All right, so we're reading ordinance 37, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance number 37, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a natural gas aggregation agreement with a supplier recommended by Energy Alliances Incorporated and declaring an emergency. Whereas the city of Springdale, the city, with approval of the voters, established an opt-out natural gas aggregation program in order to provide negotiated rates to the city's businesses and residents, and whereas the city has engaged Energy Alliances Incorporated as a consultant for its natural gas aggregation program, and whereas Energy Alliances is currently seeking rates for a natural gas supplier for the city, And whereas due to market volatility and to optimize the city's ability to obtain the lowest price available, the City Council desires to authorize the city administrator to enter into a natural gas aggregation agreement with a natural gas supplier recommended by Energy Alliances Incorporated, provided that the accepted aggregation rate is at or below the current Duke Energy Gas Cost Recovery, GCR rate, at the time of execution for a period not to exceed 12 months from the start of the program. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring Section 1, that the city administrator is hereby authorized and directed to enter into a natural gas aggregation agreement with a natural gas supplier recommended by Energy Alliances Incorporated, provided that the accepted aggregation rate is at or below the current Duke Energy GCR rate at the time of the execution for a period not to exceed 12 months from the start of the program. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which result in informal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is to lock in the best gas rate available for the city at the earliest possible date.
And council, just so you're aware, the document that was passed out had a scrivener's error. It said resolution. It was read correctly. This is an ordinance that we're passing because it's a contract that we'll be signing. Just so you're aware, that was not a mistake. There's a typo on your paper. So it is an ordinance. All right, council, you've heard the reading of ordinance 37, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Before I open up for discussion from council, I understand there is a presentation along with this, at least an opportunity. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and leave the floor open for our representative, and then as part of our questions discussion, we can have any of that addressed. Mr. Yule, did you want to add anything before that?
Thank you, Mr. President. No, I was just going to introduce our speaker. This is Mr. Dan Dieters from Energy Alliances. He met with us last week to bring us up to speed on some potential changes impacting our residents and the amount of money they pay for gas. So with that, I'll turn things over to Mr. Dieters.
Thank you, and thank you for having me tonight on such short notice. I appreciate your indulgence. I'll be short as the meeting is long. So we we decided we were probably not going to engage with Springdale in a gas program this year, or Middletown, who are both new clients, because we have information that Duke, as you have, I don't know, did you give did they have that little summary I put out there? Okay, essentially they're changing how they buy gas next October of 25. So we're kind of just going to let things run. Unfortunately, the utility filed for a 12 to 17 cent adjustment for gas that had gas costs that needed to be recovered from the last 6 or 8 months. That to make a very long story short, they estimate the usage, they buy the gas. If they don't estimate enough, they buy more. That's why it's called gas cost recovery. They recover it from the end user. So citizens of Springdale are going to start paying that back. Actually, they're starting this month. We don't know exactly what the adjustment is, but we know it's between 12 and 17 cents. So aggregations are not subject to those adjustments, and we can bring in a program that starts in October that will keep residents from paying that. Last year's cumulative winter rate was 58.4 cents a CCF. We know our rate will be below that. So the citizens, no matter what Duke's price is, the citizens will pay less than last year for their gas in the winter, and they won't have to pay that adjustment if that's tacked on or whatever that may be. And then in 8 months, when we get a better handle on how they're going to buy their new gas, we'll come back and we will have some products and some choices for you at that time. But at this time, I would ask you to let the city manager engage in that contract. And as you all know, with the volatility of everything right now, if we had to come back to a meeting, we'd never get a contract signed. So we got some initial pricing in today. It's in the low mid-50s type area, so we know we'll be cheaper than last winter. We're still trying to drill that down to get a much better price. We hope we can. And if the market goes the other way, we won't do it. We'll just make sure that we'll make sure that the administration and council knows that the time isn't right. So thank you for indulging me, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, and hopefully, Council, you see now why we added this. The market was so volatile, it was actually early today or yesterday that we found out this might even be a possibility to help our residents to be able to add this optional aggregation program. Much like our electric aggregation program, it is an opt-out system, but it is already set up that if we do sign the contract, it'll be less than last year's, and I know that makes a big difference to a lot of communities. I know I had heard a number of what a typical family should expect to save. I didn't know if those are numbers that you could share in general versus the Duke rate, just ballpark.
So if you're looking at, I mean, put it this way, it'd be about $12 to $17 if they're not spending on this adjustment at least.
Yeah.
So that's just in the winter. You use 85% of your gas between November 15 and March 15. So, you know, I can get, we don't really have the volumes for Springdale totally yet as to what that's going to be. I can give you an exact number based on that estimation once we get that.
But it is a meaningful difference for our residents, so thank you for
Yes.
indulging the change in the agenda. Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two things. One, want to make sure residents pay attention to when these notices come out. I spoke with a resident this past spring who her rate, she said, went up. She was upset, and I had explained that when these things go up, we send out notices. Folks have the opportunity to opt out if they choose to. I said, the reason why the city does this is because the vast majority of individuals, almost everybody, is going to end up with a lower rate. But there are some instances where you may be able to find something lower than what the aggregate is. But it's important, if you want to do that, you have to pay attention to the mail that comes out to you if you choose to do something different. And the second thing is, I really want folks to understand Mr. Dieters is a great asset with regard to this process. He says all the time, if you have a question, if a resident has a question, have them call me, and he means that earnestly. We got 11,000 people here. If 11,000 people want to call him and ask him about their rate, somebody else's rate, he's going to answer that phone. And it's a very unique situation that he's that accessible to our residents. So I want to note that, and I want to thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that.
And Council realize there's a lot of people that are very suspicious about these types of programs because there are a lot of bad actors out there trying to grab meters and lock people in and slam them. So we're going to need to work as a group to make sure people understand and have those questions answered. In the past, we did not renew the gas because we couldn't get a better deal, but the market has changed that it makes a lot of sense. So this is a great asset. Mr. Vandover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. President. And also to be aware that there are going to be people out knocking on your door, and they're going to try to, being kind, bully you. If you've got questions, reach out and know that we'll get answers to you. But, you know, the action of Duke, and I understand the business, but, you know, if they underestimate their consumption, then they can reach back and get us, make us pay for their poor guesstimates. And that's, you know, in the rest of the business world, if you estimate food cost and yours runs over, it's on you. So that's one of those things that the utilities have a special agreement with that I don't necessarily agree with. But if you've got questions, reach out. And again, the program is set up that you're automatically included. You can opt out, but and be careful with when people come, because a lot of these programs have hefty cancellation fees. So it doesn't always, that glass isn't always full the way they describe it. So again, if you get there, get questions. Matter of fact, yeah, I do it all the time. My first question is, have you registered with the city? Because they have to be registered with the city to be out and about. So, and most of them are not. So that's, you know, another issue. But thank you. I've been a big supporter of this for quite a while, and it's, you know, it's my money.
Yeah. If our supplier that we choose doesn't estimate correctly, tough. They take it. We move the risk from the resident to the supplier.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Ms. Browder, if you would please poll council for ordinance 37, 2024 for the Energy Alliance. It does have the emergency clause.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Aye. Thank you. Mrs. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance 37, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right. Next, we'll go back through our regular agenda that was printed, and the additional items that were added will all be in order that is described at the end of the agenda. All right, so next we have ordinance 27, 2024. This is a second reading. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance number 27, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the State of Ohio, Ohio Rail Development Commission for participation in the Orphan Rail Crossing Program. Whereas the City of Springdale, the city, desires to remove the railroad crossing at Centron Place, which is no longer actively used by rail traffic due to the adjacent track having been removed. And whereas the Ohio Rail Development Commission has been allocated $1 million in funding through the State Transportation Bill HB 33 for the Orphan Rail Crossing Program to address repairs and improvements to rail crossings that are no longer used, abandoned by the railroad, or are currently active but have no clear ownership or responsible party for maintenance. And whereas the Ohio Rail Development Commission is authorized to administer the Orphan Rail Crossing Program. And whereas the city applied for grant funding through the State of Ohio, Ohio Rail Development Commission to remove the track structure at the Centron Place Railroad Crossing and restore the roadway within the limits of the crossing. And whereas the Ohio Rail Development Commission has awarded grant funding not to exceed $28,245 to the city for removal of the Orphan Rail Crossing at the Centron Place and restoration of the road following removal. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the city administrator is hereby authorized to execute a grant agreement with the State of Ohio, Ohio Rail Development Commission for participation in the Orphan Rail Crossing Program, the agreement, and to execute any and all other documents and agreements consistent with acceptance of the grant and participation in the program. A copy of the agreement is attached at Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and if its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance 27, 2024. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved in second. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you poll council.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance number 27, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right, next we have ordinance number 31, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 31, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an employment agreement with Brian C. Ewell, setting forth certain terms and conditions of employment as city administrator and declaring an emergency. Whereas Article 3, Section H1 of the Charter of the City of Springdale, the Charter, provides the city administrator shall be the full-time administrative officer of the City of Springdale, the city responsible to and under the direct supervision of the mayor. And whereas Article 3, Section H3 of the Charter provides that City Council shall establish the compensation of the city administrator. And whereas the current city administrator will be retiring from the city on August 19, 2024. And whereas Brian C. Ewell has served as the assistant city administrator of the city since May 4th, 2020. And whereas the mayor has determined that Brian C. Ewell has the desired qualifications to serve as the next city administrator for the city. And whereas the city now seeks to enter into an employment agreement with Brian C. Ewell to serve as the city administrator. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that Brian C. Ewell has been appointed to the position of city administrator for the City of Springdale by the mayor effective August 20th, 2024. Section 2, that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute an employment contract with Brian C. Ewell to serve as city administrator, the employment agreement. A copy of the employment agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 3, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the need to expedite the employment agreement to maintain continuity of operations and be effective upon the retirement of the current city administrator.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance 31, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, I have Ms. Sullivan Weisskopf moving to adopt, and I heard Mr. Vanover seconded.
Okay.
I heard
I didn't know.
Councilperson Webster try on both counts, so we appreciate that. Thank you. You're fine.
Okay.
I do want to make a caution before I open the floor for questions and discussion. Please be aware, Council, that this ordinance does involve a contract with a public employee. We're certainly able and welcome to ask questions about the contract in the meeting here at the dais, but I'll caution you that if your questions or discussion that you feel is necessary or wants to do, start getting into any aspects about Mr. Yule specifically, that's something that's best done in executive session. So you're welcome to have those conversations as well, but I would prefer that we move to executive session for that. I'm not asking for that now, but I want you to be aware that if you start getting into that area of discussion, I will stop you and we'll move. All right? All right. All right. So at this point, questions or discussion regarding Ordinance 31, 2024. Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm asking for council support with regard to this. Obviously, as Mr. Jones is going into retirement and we will miss him, it's important to note that over the last 12 to 18 months in particular, but really since Mr. Yule got here, Mr. Jones has been working towards having a succession plan, and Mr. Yule has done every task that the city administrator can do, and Mr. Jones has worked to make sure there's a seamless transition with his retirement, being very open with regard to knowing when he's going to retire and trying to go through this process. With me being in this position, there's no question on my part with regard to interacting with Mr. Yule and interacting with Ms. Morgan that we're set up to move forward in a seamless transition in an excellent way. I've made comparisons that this is like getting Kobe Bryant, and so it's a tandem like Kobe Bryant and Shaq. I'll let them figure out who's Kobe and who's Shaq. But, you know, the culture that's been set up by Mr. Jones, the department heads, which you see a number of them present tonight, support this continuation of leadership. And so I'm hoping that council will be supportive of this. Thank you.
Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just make a quick comment that we are the beneficiaries of the prior mayor, and his forethought, because we now have, I've been saying probably for about the last 5-6 years that we have probably the strongest and best staff that we've ever had. And I reach back a while. And that this ability to make a seamless transition echoes that thought process. So I heartily welcome this. I wish Mr. Jones well, and we'll get in that at another time, but I know that I would fully support this move.
All right. Other questions or discussion? Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to start repeating things the mayor, Mr. Vanover said, but not only do I fully support everything that's been said, we have for the last 4.5 years been working toward this. I mean, obviously I know that I didn't know at that time if I would work 4, 5, 7 years, whatever it would be. But from day one, the thing that really worked well for me and my personal agenda, and then ultimately that's worked well with us as a city, is Mr. Yule's a sponge. And he desired to learn every aspect, every component of the job. And that was impressive from day one when we interviewed him. And when I said to him, okay, now that you're here, what is it you want to do? And he said, I want to know every single thing you do. And there it is. And so I cannot endorse him enough and encourage the council be supportive of this decision. You guys are really going to benefit not only from Mr. Yule, but his replacement as well, and Stephanie Morgan. Thank you.
Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for doing what you've done. Mr. Uhl, I want to tell you I'm wholeheartedly behind you. I want to thank you for the first time I walked in your office, for being so kind, considerate, and the vibe that I saw right away was created. And I told you about that vibe. It doesn't happen everywhere. So let's try to work hard to keep it. I know you will, but thanks for everything.
All right, not seeing any others. Any other comments at this point? Ms. Browder, if you please poll council on ordinance 31, 2024.
Mrs. Feldman-Weiskamp?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Ordinance 31, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. Look forward to working with you for another 3 years, Mr. Yule. Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for all the kind words. Thank you, Mayor Hawkins. I do appreciate your confidence in me. We will continue to move this city forward as we have over the past several years, and really appreciate the support that we get from council and all the hard work from all of our department heads. So with that, we've really established a great team here in the city, and look forward to continuing to advance. So thank you very much.
Great. All right, next we'll move on to ordinance 32, 2024. This is a first reading. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 32, 2024. An ordinance amending Chapter 98.01 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances governing the entertainment admission tax in the city of Springdale. Whereas the city of Springdale, the city has previously adopted Chapter 98 of the Springdale Code of Ordinances related to the city's entertainment admission tax. And whereas the city seeks to revise the application of the city's entertainment admission tax defined in Section 98.01 to include additional types of events and activities. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, Chapter 98.01E of the Springdale Code of Ordinances shall be amended as follows. Section E, entertainment. Any performance by an individual, group, or otherwise including but not limited to stage shows, musical entertainment, circuses, carnivals, displays, exhibits, exhibitions, trade shows, expos, conventions, demonstrations, and sporting events where an admission fee is charged other than school-sponsored sporting events. Section 2, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
All right, council, this was a first reading. Is there any questions or discussion tonight? I'm not seeing any. We will see this again at our next meeting. All right, next we'll move on to Resolution R9, 2024. This is the tax budget for the City of Springdale for fiscal year January 1, 25 through December 31, 2025. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Resolution number R9, 2024, resolution adopting the tax budget of the City of Springdale for the fiscal year January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. Whereas the mayor, the city administrator, and finance officer, tax commissioner of the City of Springdale, Ohio, have prepared and submitted to council a tax budget for the fiscal year January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, the tax budget. And whereas a public hearing has been conducted on the proposed tax budget with at least 10 days prior notice. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, with members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the tax budget submitted to the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio by the mayor, the city administrator, and the finance officer, tax commissioner for the year January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, a copy of which is attached and incorporated here by reference, is hereby adopted. Section 2, that the finance officer, tax commissioner is directed to submit the adopted tax budget to the County Budget Commission on or before the extension date of August 31st, 2024. Section 3, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this resolution shall take effect and be in force from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
All right, there is a public hearing attached to the tax budget, so at this point, I will open the public hearing related to Resolution R9 2024 regarding the adoption of the tax budget for the city of Springdale. If there's anyone that would like to speak for or against, provide input on the resolution, the floor is now open. It would be just like communications from the audience. You'd simply come to the dais, give your name and address, and provide any feedback that you think is relevant to this ordinance, resolution. The floor is now open. Second call. Third and final call. All right, at this point, I'm closing the public hearing related to Resolution R9 2024. Council, what is your pleasure?
To adopt.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion related to this resolution? Mr. Jones.
Very briefly, just like to thank Katie Smitty for her work on this tax budget. Brian and I quite often ask what she does to earn her keep, and we're starting to find out, but I've been curious. So anyhow, I figured since it's my last meeting, I'd get a little jab in there.
Do we need to move to executive session related to discipline or performance? That discipline of employee could be both for Mr. Jones or the finance director. All right. Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to echo the sentiments of Mr. Jones, not all of them, but I would like to publicly thank you for the work put into this. Katie was also dealing with a public records request regarding one of our TIFs, which required a lot of research and learning the TIF, this particular TIF, where the funds were coming from, how they were distributed, et cetera. It was mind-numbing. I don't know how she did it, but she got that done and this done before the deadlines, and I really appreciate all your hard work in this, so thank you very much.
Other questions? All right, seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council on Resolution R9 2024.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Aye. Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Resolution R9 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right. Next, we'll move on to Resolution R10 2024. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Resolution R10 2024, a resolution confirming Stephen Galster to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027. Whereas a vacancy has occurred on the City of Springdale Planning Commission as a result of the retirement of Stephen Galster on June 11th, 2024 for the term which expires November 30th, 2027. And whereas the mayor has announced the reappointment of Stephen Galster as of August 13th, 2024 to fill the vacancy and serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, with members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, that Stephen Galster be and is hereby confirmed effective August 13th, 2024 to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R10 2024. It can be acted on tonight. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, I had Ms. Sullivan Wisecup first and Mr. Gleaves second. All right, questions or discussion? Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your packet indicates what's going on. Just quite simply, Mr. Galster has spent many, many years on City Council. He's built up some years of PERS. He's also spent time on Planning Commission after he came off council. When you retire, in order to start receiving those benefits, you have to be out of the OPRS system for a certain period of time. Mr. Galster was going to miss the July meeting because he was going to be out of town anyway, and so this was a perfect time for him to do his retirement and then be able to come back. And so asking for council support with regard to Mr. Gosler. He does a phenomenal job on Planning Commission.
Ms. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to absolutely echo that Planning Commission, we absolutely want him back, and I know he wants to be back. He is an asset, definitely, in our board. Thank you.
All right, I'll certainly add to that. I know Mr. Gosler also serves as the representative from planning to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and his experience is very helpful, especially with so many new members on both those boards. He is an asset to the community, and we certainly appreciate his willingness to serve again, even after his 30-day retirement. So we appreciate that. All right, so seeing no other lights, Ms. Browder, if you poll council on Resolution R10, 2024.
Mrs. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Resolution R10, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right, council, now we're moving into additional ordinances that were added to our agenda. The next one I have listed is ordinance number 33, 2024. This is an ordinance accepting the bid and authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Adleta Construction. All right? Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 33, 2024, an ordinance accepting a bid and authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Adleta Construction for the Tri-County Parkway Sidewalk Project and declaring an emergency. Whereas the 2024 budget, including funding in the amount of $424,214 for the Tri-County Parkway Sidewalk Project, and whereas the city of Springdale, the city, advertised for bids for the project, and whereas sealed bids were open on July 11th, 2024, and whereas the city has reviewed the bids and determined that the lowest and best bid for the project was submitted by Adleta Construction with the base bid in the amount of $292,953.89 and an alternate bid of $28,957.50 for a total bid of $321,911.39. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1. The City of Springdale City Council finds the bid submitted by Adleta Construction in the amount of $292,953.89 for the base bid and $28,957.50 for the alternate bid to be the lowest and best bid submitted for the Tri-County Parkway Sidewalk Project. Section 2. Council hereby authorizes the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Adleta Construction for the Tri-County Parkway Sidewalk Project in the amount of $321,911.39. The agreement. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 3. Council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting with this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4. This ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 5, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the declaration of emergency is the need to execute the agreement immediately in order to complete the work in a timely manner for the prices quoted.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 33, 2024. It does have the emergency clause and can be acted on tonight. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, Mr. Vanover for the second. All right, questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you poll council on ordinance 33, 2024.
Mrs. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Aye.
Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Aye. Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Ordinance 33, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right, next we have ordinance now labeled 34, 2024. This is the ordinance levying special assessments for the improvements of driveway aprons in the public right-of-way. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 34, 2024, an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of driveway aprons in the public right-of-way related to the West Crescentville Road curb and concrete replacement project and declaring an emergency. Whereas, as part of the West Crescentville Road curb and concrete replacement project, the city determined the need to construct driveway aprons in the public right-of-way in front of the properties listed on the attached Exhibit A and move forward with the improvements. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the final assessment of the cost and expense of constructing said improvements of driveway aprons is hereby adopted and confirmed, and that there be and are hereby levied and assessed in accordance with the benefit upon the lots and lands bounding and abutting upon the construction area in the amounts reported in the attached Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that the assessment against each lot or parcel of land shall be payable in cash within 30 days after the adoption of this ordinance with no interest to be charged thereon. All cash payments shall be made to the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner of the city. All assessments thereof remaining unpaid at the expiration of said 30 days shall be certified by the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner to the County Auditor as provided by law to be placed on the tax duplicate and collected as other taxes are collected. Section 3, that the Finance Officer Tax Commissioner is hereby directed to deliver a certified copy of this ordinance to the County Auditor within 30 days after its adoption. Section 4, that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall be effective immediately upon its passage pursuant to Article 2D, 3D of the Charter. The reason for said declaration of emergency is for the orderly financing of the project and to meet related deadlines.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance 34, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you poll council.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup. Aye. Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Ordinance 34, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right, next we have Ordinance 35, 2024. This was the ordinance related to contributions to health accounts of full-time employees. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 35, 2024, an ordinance authorizing contributions to certain health accounts of full-time employees of the City of Springdale related to the city's health insurance plan and declaring an emergency. Whereas the City of Springdale, the city, became a member of the Center for Local Government Benefits pool offered through the Center for Local Government beginning August 1st, 2010, and whereas, as part of the city's health insurance plan, the city has established health savings accounts, HSAs, and health reimbursement accounts, HRAs, for full-time city employees and those employees who qualify under the city's part-time firefighter health insurance program. And whereas Council for the City of Springdale has determined that it is appropriate for the city to make contributions to these funds up to certain levels in order to provide an additional medical benefit that assists employees with rising healthcare expenses. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the City of Springdale shall make contributions to the HSA and or HRA accounts for all current full-time employees participating in the city's health insurance plan for the 2024-2025 plan year beginning August 1st, 2024, in an amount up to 50% of the deductible for a full year, but shall not exceed $1,000 for single coverage or $2,000 for employee spouse, employee child, or family coverage provided the employee is in compliance with all requirements of the city's health insurance program. Section 2, that the City of Springdale shall make contributions to the HSA and or HRA accounts for all these employees who qualify under the city's part-time firefighter health insurance program and are participating in the city's health insurance plan for the 2024-2025 plan year. Beginning August 1st, 2024, in the amount of up to 50% of the deductible for a full year, but shall not exceed $1,000 for single coverage or $2,000 for employee spouse, employee child, or family coverage, provided the employee is in compliance with all requirements of the city's health insurance program. Section 3, the city shall make contributions to the HSA and or HRA accounts for all new full-time city employees on a prorated basis as set forth in Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference provided the employee is in compliance with all requirements of the health insurance program. Section 4, that the finance officer is hereby authorized to take any actions necessary to make said contributions. Section 5, that this council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 6, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 7, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the immediate need to immediately implement the program and authorize the contributions at the earliest possible date.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance 35, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you poll council.
Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Aye. Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan Wisecup.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Ordinance number 35, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right, council, next we have ordinance number 36, 2024. This is related to the execution of a project loan agreement with the state of Ohio. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 36, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a project loan agreement with the state of Ohio through the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvements Program for the Northland Boulevard Reconstruction Project and declaring an emergency. Whereas the City of Springdale, the city, by virtue of its charter and the laws of the state of Ohio, is authorized and empowered to issue its obligations to finance capital improvements projects. And whereas pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Chapter 164, the Director of the Ohio Public Works Commission is empowered to enter into agreements with local subdivisions to provide loans, grants, and local debt support for capital improvement projects. And whereas the city filed an application for funding through the Ohio Public Works Commission, the OPWC, related to the Northland Boulevard Reconstruction Project, the project. And whereas OPWC has awarded the city a 20-year zero-interest loan in an amount not to exceed $1,170,627 for the project. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the mayor and the city administrator are hereby authorized to execute a project loan agreement in an amount not to exceed $1,170,627, the agreement with the state of Ohio through the Ohio Public Works Commission related to the financing for the Northland Boulevard Reconstruction Project, and to execute any and all other documents and agreements consistent with acceptance of the loan and participation in the program. A copy of the agreement is attached to Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the need to execute the agreement in a timely manner in order to allow for the city's participation in the program at the earliest possible date to ensure the project remains on schedule.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance 36, 2024. It has the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Sullivan Wisecup.
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves.
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs.
Aye.
Mr. Vanover.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster. Mr. Anderson.
Aye. Ordinance 36, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right, council, next we have ordinance number 38, 2024. This was the ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to approve the assignment of the community reinvestment agreement. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 38, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to approve the assignment of a community reinvestment agreement and declaring an emergency. Whereas 11911 Sheridan Lane, LLC, and Indiana Limited Liability Company, Sheraton, is the owner of the real property known as Hamilton County Parcel Number 0599005000406, the property, with a mailing address of 11911 Sheridan Lane in the city of Springdale. And whereas the City of Springdale City and Millhouse Development LLC and Indiana Limited Liability Company, Millhouse, previously entered into a certain community reinvestment area agreement dated July 21st, 2021, pursuant to Ordinance 29, 2021, CRA agreement. Under the CRA agreement, Millhouse, who was the owner of the property at the time, agreed to acquire and develop the property as a multifamily housing community. In return, the city agreed to grant the property real estate tax incentives through a 15-year, 50% real estate tax exemption, tax abatement, as more specifically provided in the CRA agreement. Whereas the City of Springdale, whereas the Council of the City passed Ordinance number 29, 2021, which approved the CRA agreement and tax abatement, whereas Millhouse previously transferred the property to Sheraton, and as a part of such transfer, Millhouse and Sheraton seek to enter into an assignment of community reinvestment area agreement, whereby Sheraton will assume Millhouse's rights under the CRA agreement, the assignment, and the city's consent is required to approve the agreement. The assignment, I apologize. Whereas, as part of the assignment, Sheraton seeks to refinance an existing loan on the property by entering into various loan documents with Grand Bridge Real Estate Capital, LLC, a North Carolina limited liability company, lender, and the Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, the loan, in which, among other things, Sheraton will assign its interest in the CRA agreement through a certain consent to assignment of CRA agreement by and among the city, Sheraton, lender, and Fannie Mae, consent. Whereas the city seeks to enter into, approve of the assignment and consent, and whereas the assignment and consent will further the goal of the city's community reinvestment agreement legislation as previously iterated in Ordinance 29, 2021. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, The mayor and the city administrator are hereby authorized to consent to the assignment by and between Millhouse and Sheraton and enter into the consent with Sheraton, lender, and Fannie Mae. A copy of the assignment and consent are attached as Exhibit A, or attached as Attachment A and Attachment B, respectively, and both are incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council, and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the need to execute both the assignment and consent in order to meet deadlines related to the further financing and development of the property.
All right, council, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 38, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? All right, not seeing any. Ms. Brown, if you poll council on ordinance number 38, 2024.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Seldon-Weiskopf?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance 38, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right. Finally, we have ordinance number 39, 2024. This was the ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation. All right. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 39, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration for participation in the fiscal year 2023 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program and declaring an emergency. Whereas the city of Springdale, the city, desires to establish a roadway system that is safe, equitable, and accommodating to all individuals traveling to, from, or through the community. And whereas the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, the SS4A, was established through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act with $5 billion in appropriated funds for 2022 through 2026. And whereas the SS4A supports the development of a comprehensive safety action plan to identify the most significant roadway safety concerns in a community. And whereas the city applied for grant funding through the SS4A to develop an action plan to increase safety and improve transportation for all roadway users within the city of Springdale. And whereas the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration has awarded grant funding in the amount of $114,563 to the city for development of such an action plan. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the city administrator is hereby authorized to execute a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration for participation in the fiscal year 2023 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, the agreement, and to execute any and all other documents and agreements consistent with acceptance of the grant and participation in the program. A copy of the agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and if its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law. Section 4, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the need to execute the agreement in a timely manner in order to allow for the city's participation in the program at the earliest possible date.
Council, you've heard the reading of ordinance 39, 2024. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council.
Ms. Seldon-Weiskopf?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Aye. Mr. Anderson?
Aye. Ordinance 39, 2024 passes with 6 affirmative votes. All right, that ends our ordinances and resolutions. Thank you for hanging with us during the changes. I know that was a little bit of a wild one. Ms. Sullivan-Weiskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to go to an executive session under Article 2D1 of the Springdale Charter to discuss economic development issues as well as to conference with counsel related to pending litigation.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Question or discussion about moving into executive session? Seeing none, Ms. Brown, if you poll council on moving to executive session.
Ms. Seldon-Weiskopf?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster? Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye. With 6-0 vote, we're going to move to executive session. Is there ordinances or action expected out of this? No? All right, thank you. We're in executive session. We will be back. All right, council has returned from executive session. We're going to move on to item 11, old business. Is there any old business to bring before council tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. We do have one request from administration that we take up a look at 3003. This is based off discussion that we had in our last pre-meeting. We had a meeting about how ordinances are brought together. Mayor Hawkins is asking us to take a look at that, see if we can streamline some of the stuff to get it in line with the way we would prefer to do things. I believe, Mr. Brown, you have some ideas on how to do that. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. If council is comfortable with it, what I can do is do an initial draft and circulate that to everyone, work with President Anderson and the mayor, get that language down, and then we'll present it to you at a future meeting for your consideration. I don't think this is something that might, need to go to rules of law or anything. I think this is something procedural, kind of like we did the civility rule where we kind of circulated it. Everybody had an opportunity to weigh in on it, and since this is a procedural rule, we'll try to have that to you by our next meeting.
Does anyone on council have any concerns about how we'll approach that request? Is that all right? Mayor Hawkins and I will take the first stab at it with Mr. Braun, and then you all have a chance to weigh in. Again, it's a procedural thing. I think we can get it squared away. One of the things that will help with is what we saw tonight, too. Some of those late changes, the reason we had to do those changes on the fly, at least some of them, was a result of this procedural item where we couldn't just add things without having the discussion and circulating. So we want to avoid that by updating the code. All right. Any other new business the council would like to bring forward? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to meetings and announcements. Ms. Sullivan-Weiskup.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning Commission will meet in these chambers at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, August 13th.
Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Saturday, the 20th, the vendor and craft market returns to Springdale Elementary. There'll be more than 20 different vendors and crafts makers there, and so I encourage people to check it out. It's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Saturday, the 20th.
Mayor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just again, a reminder, on September 11th at 7 p.m., it's a Wednesday evening, we'll have a town hall meeting. All elected officials are welcome to be there. Don't feel obligated, but you're welcome to be there. I know President Anderson is committed to being there. I'm going to be there. All residents are welcome to give feedback and have informal discussion.
Thank you for that. Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. The July 23rd BZA meeting has been canceled. The next scheduled meeting is August 27th, right here in these chambers.
Right. Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to reiterate what Mr. Coleman had advised earlier, Civil Service Commission will meet on Thursday, August 1st at 2 p.m. in the council conference room.
All right, not seeing any more meetings and announcements. Next, we'll move on to communications from the audience. This is the second and last chance in this meeting to have communications from the audience. If anyone in the audience would like to address council for any reason, you would simply come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you'd have up to 5 minutes to address council. At this point, I'm opening the floor for communications from the audience. Second call. Third and final call. All right, I'm closing communications from the audience. Next, we'll move on to recap of legislative items and legislation and development in whichever order makes the most sense for Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the items we voted on tonight, I'll be reading the summaries in order that we voted on them. Ordinance number 37, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a natural gas aggregation agreement with the supplier recommended by Energy Alliances Incorporated and declaring an emergency passed with 6 affirmative votes. Ordinance number 27, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the State of Ohio, Ohio Rail Development Commission for participation in the Orphan Rail Crossing Program. That passed with 6 affirmative votes. Ordinance 31, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an employment agreement with Brian C. Ewell, setting forth certain terms and conditions of employment as city administrator and declaring an emergency. That passed with 6 affirmative votes. Resolution R09, 2024, a resolution adopting the tax budget of the City of Springdale for the fiscal year January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. That passed with 6 affirmative votes. Resolution R10, 2024, a resolution confirming Stephen Galster to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027, passed also with 6 affirmative votes. Ordinance number 33, 2024, an ordinance accepting a bid and authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with Athleta Construction for the Tri-County Parkway Sidewalk Project and declaring an emergency. That passed with 6 affirmative votes. Ordinance number 34, 2024, an ordinance levying special assessments for the improvement of driveway aprons in the public right-of-way related to the West Crescentville Road curb and concrete replacement project and declaring an emergency, passed with 6 affirmative votes. Ordinance number 35, 2024, an ordinance authorizing contributions to certain health accounts of full-time employees of the City of Springdale related to the city's health insurance plan and declaring an emergency, passed with 6 affirmative votes. Ordinance number 36, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a project loan agreement with the State of Ohio through the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvements Program for the Northland Boulevard Reconstruction Project and declaring an emergency, passed with 6 affirmative votes. Ordinance number 38, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to approve the assignment of a community reinvestment agreement and declaring an emergency, passed with 6 affirmative votes. And ordinance number 39, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration for participation in the fiscal year 2023 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program and declaring an emergency, also passed with 6 affirmative votes. Items still in development. Item 2 from your internal memorandum was addressed by ordinance 32, an amendment to chapter 98.01 of the code governing the entertainment admission tax. That was a first reading. And the rest of the items are from your internal memorandum coming up for our next meeting in August. Item 11, a resolution commending City Administrator John J. Jones for his dedicated service to the citizens of the City of Springdale. Item 12, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with FYDA Freightliner Cincinnati for the purchase of a truck cab and chassis and declaring an emergency. Item 13, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into an agreement with W.A. Jones Truck Equipment for the purchase of a hook lift upgrade and declaring an emergency will also be on the agenda for the August 21st meeting. Item 14, an ordinance authorizing the city of Springdale, Ohio to enter into a lease purchase agreement to finance the purchase of a dump truck and declaring an emergency will be at the August 21st meeting as well. Item 15, an ordinance enacting and adopting the 2024 S27 supplement to the Springdale Code of Ordinances and declaring an emergency will also be on tap for the August 21st meeting. Item 16, a resolution authorizing the filing of continuing disclosures related to the filing of continuing disclosures related to the March 2017 street improvement bonds, and that will be featured at our August meeting as well. And item 17, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment and preliminary development plan for the Springdale Cinema Apartment Project at 505 West Crescentville Road. And that will have a first reading in the August 21st meeting. And finally, item 18, an ordinance approving a major modification to the PUD and preliminary development plan for the Bodega Project at 12021 Sheraton Lane. Unless there's anything else. Thank you.
That's quite a bit. And as a final reminder, Council, our August 7th meeting has been canceled for the summer schedule. So we'll see you next August 21st. All that's left before us is item 17.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for hanging with us.